I truly do have a love-hate relationship with print on demand. And in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the lesser spoken of cons to print on demand that many don't realize can happen. Of course, there's really no business model that's perfect. Everything has its flaws, and print on demand is no exception to that. So I've been selling with both Printful.com and Printify.com as my print on demand companies in my Etsy shops for about 4 or 5 years, and I have been through the best and the worst with both of them. So let's talk about it. So the first thing that I haven't absolutely loved about my experience with print on demand is just the lack of control overall. Your products are being printed in a warehouse states away, maybe countries away from you, so there's no way to get in there and, maybe you need to change an address, maybe you need to rush an order. All of a sudden, things happen within your Etsy shop that you're not going to have control over directly in your print on demand experience. So you have to be creative sometimes, you have to think on your feet, you have to find quick solutions. There is that lack of control, especially with the shipment time, that can make things a little bit stressful. You have customers that may place an order and then 24 hours after they've placed it, they message you and they're like, oh, by the way, I need this by Saturday. And your order has already gone through with the print on demand company. And most of the time you can't cancel an order once it goes into production. So you're like, okay, cool. Well, you're gonna get the product anyway, and I'm going to refund you anyway. So I don't get a 1-star review from you. There's no way to then go back and be like to the print on demand company, you can't say, can you please rush this item? Like once it's gone into production, once you've chosen your shipping time, you cannot adjust that. And there are exceptions to these. Sometimes I've noticed with Printify especially, they will actually go in to their warehouse and ask if they can cancel an order or adjust something. This is kind of a newer feature that they're allowing. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes they let you get away with it. But overall, that lack of control is kind of annoying. The other thing is, in general, things that you can't control that happen in the world, like what happened in 2020 this year, with a lot of different things happening that affect not only people's purchasing habits, but also fulfillment times and delays and all of that sort of thing. So in April of 2020, Printify.com, which I use as my main print on demand company, really slowed down in production. So I got more orders than I probably ever have on Etsy, and most of them were on an 18 to 20 day turnaround time, which was so horrible. And yes, I learned to communicate really well with my customers in order to make sure nobody got too upset. Of course, there were a few people that got very upset, even though I explained to them what was going on. But it's just things like that that you can't really, again, control. And it's something that you just have to let go. It's worth it overall. All of these problems that I'm talking about, when it all comes out in the wash, it's still worth being able to deal with these things and coming out with all of the other benefits and pros that print on demand can provide you as a seller. But things like 2020 happen and production times slow down to up to 20 days when they were 1 to 4 days being turned around. It's a little stressful, but we got through it, and it's one of those things that you can't help. You just have to get through it when it comes at you, and I wish it wouldn't have happened the way it did. It was very difficult, it was very stressful, but like I said, it all worked out okay. So another thing that happened with Printify.com, I really gas Printify up a lot because I like it. I used Printful, and I'm going to talk about in a second the reasons why I wasn't super happy with my experience on Printful. But Printify itself also has its flaws. That production time being one of those main things, 18 to 20 days, which they couldn't help. I understood that, but something that did happen is one of their suppliers that I used. You can use different suppliers within Printify. Changed their design guidelines on their hoodies, meaning the area that they could print on or that they allowed you to place your design within. Because like think about on a hoodie, when it's laid out in a mock-up in your editor and you're placing your design, there's only a little square, a space on that hoodie that you can place your design without it going outside of that area and not printing. So the supplier that I was using changed the dimensions of that guideline and it moved it down on the hoodie. And I sell a particular hoodie that has a design about here, and they moved the guideline down to about here. They sent out an email with a tiny little blurb about them moving that guideline down, but it was at the bottom of the email, and it wasn't even just about that. It was about a bunch of other announcements. So yes, I read it, but I didn't actually see that final bullet point because it was buried underneath all this other information. And I did read it, but it didn't calculate to me. It didn't say like, go in and change this if you have, items with this particular supplier. It basically just said like, when you're creating new products, keep in mind that there is a new guideline. I don't know if I'm making sense or I'm explaining this all wrong, but basically what happened is that I had about maybe 50 to 100 orders for the particular hoodie that I was selling with that design up here. The design guidelines bumped further down, so the design ended up being cut off like in half. So all of these orders shipped to my customers. And so to this day, I still get about a message a day of people being like, I got my hoodie, but the design is halfway cut off and I have to replace that at my cost. Yes, I brought it to the attention of Printify and they basically told me, you're not the only one this happened to and we're really, really sorry, but our priority right now is getting items out as quickly as they can. So, yeah, sorry. So I've lost a lot of money going toward replacing these customers with their items. That's one thing that is a print-on-demand risk that you run. Maybe their communication isn't very good. Maybe things like this happen and you have to think on your feet, or you've got to be able to shell out some extra cash in order to replace these items for your customers. I will say this is a very isolated incident. Most people didn't have designs up that high on their items, so they didn't have to deal with this. Designs that were below a certain mark weren't affected. So all in all, it was just the perfect storm. It was a bad situation, but it's just something that comes with the territory. Another thing that I'm not a super fan about, this happened with Printful, was state taxes. Printful, to me, was a little shady about this because they announced that on all of their orders, they were now going to be charging a state tax, which was, anywhere between $1 and $3 or $4. So it was a substantial amount of money that they were making the sellers pay in terms of sales tax. And what they were thinking is, well, you are supposed to charge your customer sales tax, and then in your order, you're going to pay us that sales tax and whatever, we'll cover ourselves that way. But that's really not the way it works on Etsy. They collect state tax for you and remit it themselves. Then you go to your print-on-demand supplier and you're paying a state tax for this customer's order that you didn't receive. You didn't receive that state tax that they paid for. So now you're paying for their state tax. It made no sense. And when I asked the Printify associate about it, they were like, yeah, we're not really sure. Like, we're new to this too. So I was like, okay, that's annoying. You just you just squished my profit margin, basically having to pay $1 to $4 extra on an order for a reason I don't really even understand. And so then magically, probably about 2 months later, after I'd had all these orders come through with the state tax, it disappeared. And you no longer have to pay state tax. There was zero explanation from Printify, which was really annoying because it was all this extra money that I had to shell out on each order. Not a significant amount, of course. It wasn't anything that I was super stressed out about, but it was just one of those things that was like very gray area. They couldn't really explain it very well. I knew something was strange about it, and then it just disappears with no explanation. So those are some of my not so positive experiences with print on demand, but as I said, there are a lot of pros to using print on demand companies. None of these things were enough to make me scrap the strategy altogether. I still use both Printful and Printify, and I've come out the other side of all of those things being that much smarter. And the chances are, as a print on demand seller, you're gonna experience stuff like this. You cannot control every moving part of your business at all times. Not just with print on demand, with any type of business, you're always running the risk of something spinning out of your control, and you have to just know that you are equipped to handle it. Whatever comes your way, you can find a solution. It may not be a super comfortable solution, but you can find a solution. And that's sort of the mindset that I've gone into this whole print on demand experience with. And it has really been advantageous to me to think that way. And when I do come up against something, I allow myself to be a little bit annoyed. When all these customers received these items that had the design cut in half, I was really annoyed, I'll be honest, because that reflected directly on my brand. And just in general, no one wants to have to deal with that kind of stuff. But like I said, it comes with the territory, and you have to go into new ventures like this knowing that you're gonna come up against roadblocks. Stuff's gonna suck sometimes, but in the end, it's really worth it. Being able to not have to do production on things, being able to not have to pack orders and ship them every single day, which I did for 5 years, and it was so grueling. It's all worth it. So yes, even having the definite cons that are present with print on demand, in the end, it truly is worth it, and I would highly encourage anybody that is looking into going into the print on demand space with their Etsy shops to go for it, because you are equipped to handle these kinds of things. Even if you feel like you're not, everything has a solution, some sort of workaround, or if it doesn't, you'll get over it. You will be okay. So even knowing that this stuff can happen, just take it as an encouraging thing as opposed to a scary thing, because it happens to everybody. These are things that you can't control. They are unforeseen, but they happen, and you just have to learn how to deal with them as they come. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. I'll see you in the next video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, please like and subscribe. You can also join the Be a Wolf Biz Facebook group. I'm gonna put the link in the description below. Please comment on this video as well if there's anything specifically that you're wondering about or that you would like to see me put a video out on. I would love to give you guys as much value as possible and help you along in your Etsy journeys. So let me know what you want to hear, and we'll see you next time. We'll see you later.